Anybody in the mood to buy Winn Dixie? Yes, apparently Aldi, who just bought Winn Dixie, is now selling Winn Dixie. And this kind of goes back to our prediction about a month ago that companies are going to start trading each other like baseball cards. Well, Winn Dixie is the newest baseball card to be had. Now, what makes this really crazy interesting is who exactly is going to be buying Winn Dixie back from Aldi. And yes, I said back. That's because in 2023, Southeastern Grocers sold Winn Dixie to Aldi. Now, Southeast Grocers, in combination with oddball C&S Grocers, is now buying Winn Dixie back from Aldi's. There is so much to unpack. There is so many, talk about rabbit hole. Because every question I could find an answer to, 17 more questions popped up. Okay? This actually makes me very unsettled and angry because this is just weird. Okay?
Right.
Weird with a capital W, weird.
Okay.
Whew. So, yeah. Now, the deal for Winn Dixie is so Southeast Grocers and C&S Wholesalers have come together as a private investment, and they are purchasing 170 stores, primarily located in Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida, as well as any existing Winn Dixie liquor store businesses. If you've ever lived in the South, I know it's weird, but you would go into a grocery store, you would have all of the grocery store things. You have to leave the grocery store, go next door, go inside, and then you can buy liquor. Okay? Like in some grocery stores in other parts of the US, you actually could just go to a section that sold liquor, like sold wine and beer, stuff like that. No, in Florida, they do it a little different. But so the crazy part of this is that, so Aldi originally purchased a total of 700 stores. And their plan was to convert 220 of them into Aldi stores. And they were going to be doing that over the next couple years, and they were expected to be done by 2027. Okay. So out of those 700, a bunch have actually just closed. They went through and they called out all of the lowest performing stores that were in areas that either didn't support a renovation, or maybe they were in buildings that were just going to cost too much to renovate. They closed them. Okay. And then they're just slowly converting them over. But there's some analyst talk that after Aldi acquired all of these stores, they basically realized that Winn Dixies are full on grocery stores. They have deli departments, they have bakeries. Most of them have a actual meat department. Yeah. And none of those are included in the business model of Aldi's. So already you're talking about taking a very large store, and then in some cases they're shrinking it down to meet the Aldi format. So that's already kind of weird. It's one thing to make something bigger, but to make something smaller, okay? Yeah. And so I think they may have realized that this was a little bit more than they wanted, because they weren't going to convert all 700 stores. They were going to keep Winn Dixie operating as Winn Dixie. Well, Aldi really has no use for having a bakery and a deli and a meat department and all that stuff. So it actually really makes sense that once they took the assets that they knew that they wanted or that was beneficial, they were left with the stuff that was kind of it came with the deal. So I could see them then kind of putting these up for sale rather than just letting them close, because that's kind of the alternative. But I don't think anybody saw Southeast Grocers buying them back. And sure as heck, nobody saw C&S Wholesalers. And if you're not, if you've been living under a rock, C&S Wholesalers was who is going to buy up Albertsons and Kroger stores during their merger in order to meet the federal guidelines. In areas where they had too many stores in one city, they were going to sell off all their underperforming stores to CNS. And
Right.
part of the reason why that merger didn't go through is because there was a whole lot of doubt that CNS could handle 700 stores.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you may be wondering, and this was my question, is what the heck does CNS Grocers and Southeast Grocers have in common? Why would they come together, join their private equity to purchase all these stores? Like, how are they
Right.
related? Is this just
Yeah.
something new? Well, that's where I went down the rabbit hole. Okay.
Oh,
Are
boy.
you ready to go down this rabbit hole?
I'm on for the ride. Let's go.
Okay. So we have to go back almost 25 years ago. Yeah. It's that big of a rabbit hole.
Wow.
So it starts out with CNS. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They have always been a wholesaler. Okay. Basically, they have big distributions and they do private label, private brand type stuff for smaller grocery stores. Okay. Yeah. So then they got into the retail market in 2001 by acquiring the Grand Union supermarket chain. Okay.
Okay.
And basically, Grand Union declared bankruptcy. So CNS went in and they acquired it. Okay. Kind of makes sense. And they continued to operate these stores for a long time. So then we fast forward to about 2011. This is when Bi-Lo and Winn Dixie merged. Okay, this is one of the biggest mergers of its time to create a mega organization of about 700 stores over 8 states. That was pretty big for 2011.
That's pretty big. Yeah.
And then shortly around that time, CNS sells off those Grand Union stores to Tops Market, okay, which is another, it was a fairly large chain in the Northeast, okay?
Okay.
And then 2013, Bi-Lo, that, conglomerate of Bi-Lo and Winn Dixie was acquired. It was announced that Bi-Lo was acquiring Harvey's, Sweet Bay, and Reed's Banners. Okay. And they bought it from Del Hayes, which owns things like Hannaford and Food Line. Okay. Are you confused yet?
Nope.
We're doing a whole lot of swapping here. Okay.
I'm still okay.
So in Florida, they had all these really beautiful Sweet Bay stores. Okay. And they went and they changed all the Sweet Bay stores to Winn Dixie. Okay. And they changed all the Reed stores to Bi-Lo stores. And the Harveys they bought all stayed as Harveys. Okay. And then a little bit goes by, and Southeast Grocers was created by Lone Star Funds, which became the new parent company for Bi-Lo, Harveys, and Winn Dixie. Okay, so that's where Southeast Grocers comes about. Okay. So then, 2013, Southeast Grocers announced an agreement to buy 22 Piggly Wiggly stores. Okay, which you may know, as of right now, CNS owns Piggly Wiggly. Are you starting to see some connections here?
It's weird. Okay.
And then in 2013, CNS entered into a partnership with Bi-Lo to provide their warehousing, their distribution, and their procurement services for all Winn Dixie stores.
Okay.
So CNS, as part of the agreement, started operating 6 existing Winn Dixie distribution centers. So are you starting to see, like, CNS's main business is their warehousing and distribution. Yeah. So since way back in 2013, these two companies have been connected. Now, in 2014, CNS, they acquire all of Piggly Wiggly, okay, which included the branding, the marketing, the store support, the accounting, the IT services, all of it, okay?
Okay.
And they still operate like 20 some odd Piggly Wiggly stores.
Okay.
In 2015, all of a sudden, times are getting tough. Southeast Grocers announces the sale of a bunch of its Bi-Lo locations. Okay, they start selling them off. And it's interesting because in like Tennessee and Georgia, all of a sudden we started seeing these new stores called Food City. Well, basically all the buy low stores became Food City. Then in a little bit later in 2015, Southeast Grocers starts laying people off, okay, all over the place. And they say it's to improve efficiency and invest in service and value, okay? And then 2016 and 2017, C&S starts converting a whole bunch of Winn Dixie stores into a new Hispanic grocery store called Fresco Mas, okay? And over the next 2 years, they end up with a total of, it's like 20 stores, okay?
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, 2018, Southeast Grocers, they announced they are filing for bankruptcy, okay? And by 2020, they've been going through this bankruptcy. They have announced they can no longer operate stores under the Buy Low banner, and they sell off 62 stores, okay? And you think that's okay. And then C&S, they start purchasing stores from Tops. Okay. Now remember, they bought Grand Union and they sold it to Tops.
Right.
So then in 2021, Tops had to sell stores because they were merging with Price Chopper. And they agreed to take the stores that would due to the FTC regulations. Okay. So they're getting a bunch more stores back. And they're going to open them as Grand Union. You see how it's just this weird circle?
Yeah.
And then in 2023, in August, S&E Grocers announced they're going to sell off Winn Dixie and Harvey stores, and that they're also going to sell off the Fresco stores. Okay? So they sell off all their stores. They basically close. And then out of nowhere, now in 2025, the president of Southeastern Grocers is going to get with C&S and buy back 170 stores. So first off, this is the most confusing business model I've ever seen in my life. Okay? This is either insanity where you just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again, expecting different results. I mean, first off, it's good to know that these two companies have had a long business together. I mean, they've been for 25 years. But what the heck?
There's so many questions.
I know. That's what I said. Like every time I found an answer, 12 more would pop up. First off, so C&S has a long history of buying up stores and then pushing them along to other, basically getting bought out by other mergers. Okay.
Right.
So that right there tells me it was a really good idea that they didn't take on 700 stores from the Kroger-Albertsons merger, because based on their business model that they have shown for the last 25 years, they would have broken them up and sold them off to other small chains. And the odds of those stores still being in business within 5 years would significantly decrease. So the judges in that case were right on target. Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Then now you have a company that sold off all their assets, but then somehow have enough private equity to then buy back the ones that have already been cherry picked out, that have already been closed. I mean, you've got it from 700 down to 170. I cannot imagine that these are the best performing Winn Dixies, the newest buildings. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like these last 170 stores would be the most problematic.
Right.
Like they weren't the worst of the worst, because those definitely got cold at the very beginning. Yeah. But this is definitely like the bottom of the barrel, just not sitting at the bottom.
That's what there's. So one, like,
it screams first off, how do they keep coming up with all this money? And now on the C&S side, I can kind of understand, because it appears their primary business model is this warehousing and distribution. And it's almost like they buy and sell stores for fun. Like picking up real estate and then letting it go, picking up real estate and then letting it go. They do
Well,
not seem to be in the grocery operating space. Like that's not their primary function.
they
And
have private label products that they offer for,
for smaller chains.
well, yeah, for Piggly Wiggly, IGA, things like that. So they do
Yes.
private label for them. And then there's a few others that they do. But like, I'm going to look at Southeastern Grocers now to see if they do anything besides that. Like, I don't understand why you would
But
buy
see,
and sell.
okay, so Southeast Grocers is a runner of grocery stores. Like they own and operate grocery stores. That's what they do.
Okay.
CNS Wholesalers really is the wholesales and the distribution that gets the food to and from these smaller brands.
Yeah.
And they've had a long history of working with Winn Dixie, so it kind of makes sense because who better to make sure you're getting distributed from than the distributor that you use? So it's kind of like a double dip. If CNS owns half of the stores, or at least a 50% equity, and they're also distributing to those stores, they're kind of ensuring their success.
Right.
But, you know what I mean? It's just, it seems so bizarre that this Southeast Grocers was basically dead in the water,
Right.
you know? And now all of a sudden they've reared back like, zombies and are going to eat back at Winn Dixie.
Yeah. Yeah. And it bounces back and forth. So there's no hell no, man.
That Winn Dixies are very large stores. Okay.
Very.
I mean, you're talking about like the size of like a Kroger or a Major or, a good sized store. Okay. And I know that they had already, especially in Florida where there's a ton of Winn Dixies, they already had a bunch of them close. And a lot of cities were concerned because big, huge retailers, think of it like your Macy's, your J.C. Penney's, they're all going out of business. And who's going to take up the space for an entire grocery store? And so when a grocery store dies in a strip mall, a lot of times it makes the whole strip mall go down, because nobody's visiting it anymore. And I have seen where it takes years and years and they finally break up the actual grocery store into smaller sections and then it gets bought, by different companies.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time and it takes a lot of money to renovate these and to, get all that done. So the whole thing is truly bizarre. Truly bizarre.
Yeah. No, it feels like the way money keeps changing with the same sets of hands
for 25 years in a
for
circle.
25 years. Just, it feels gross. I don't know. There's something about it that really rubs me the wrong way. That something is not being held above board. I'm really,
but I will
and
say
that's just a gut feeling though. Apropos of almost nothing, because realistically, this is me looking from the outside with limited data. So not to say that there is something, it's just, it's so wildly out of character.
So last month we mentioned that CNS laid off a bunch of people. Okay. Yeah. And they weren't being forthcoming about why, no statements of efficiency or anything.
Yeah.
They didn't respond at all. And it was kind of a PR weirdness. Why wouldn't you respond? Well, now we know they were probably getting ready for this deal with Southeast Grocers to buy Winn Dixie. So I kind of want to put more weirdness from CNS Grocers on my, bingo card for 2025 because I feel so are they going to stay Winn Dixie? Are they going to change names? What's going to happen? I feel like this is, a weird chess game. And I feel like there's still 3 more moves that they're going to make. So we don't know the whole story.
Well, the CEO's last name is Winn, Winn. So wonder if there's anything correlated.
Yeah. So,
or if that's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
It's,
But so I think this is not the end of the story. I don't
right.
even think this is the middle. In some weird way, I believe we're still in the beginning of this story.
Yeah.
And we will definitely keep an eye on this and try to keep this straight. I'm telling you, it took me forever to find this timeline and to line it all up. I mean, ridiculous.
I think you need a flow chart.
I do need a flow chart.
You
So
need a flow
down
chart.
below, tell us, what do you think is going to actually happen with Winn Dixie? Will it stay with S&E Grocers and C&S Wholesalers? Will it be sold off yet again to somebody else? Will it change names? God only knows. Tell me your predictions down below.